Keene, in Manchester, and requesting a variance for property located at 210 through 222 West Street, Keene, tax map 576 009 000 000. That is in the Commerce District. The petitioner requests a variance to permit a multifamily dwelling with 5 residential units where residential uses are not a permitted use in the Commerce District per Chapter 100, Table 8-1, permitted principal uses by zoning district of the zoning regulations. At this point, I'll call on city staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, as described, this is the property on 210, 222 West Street, the Colony Mill property. This property did become before the board back in 2016, and were granted a variance at that time for the multifamily uses. That variance was conditioned to 90 units, at which at this point, as my understanding is that 89 units were actually built in the main larger mill building. It does have some secondary buildings on the property. One of them currently is occupied as a casino. Prior to that, it was a restaurant. And then there's a newly constructed, and I'll let the applicant speak to it because the numbers fallen off. Oh, thank you. There's a new building there that has 3 units, I believe, that has just been constructed and hopefully occupied in the near future, as well as Michael pointed out, there is the bank, actually the old candy shop that was converted into a bank recently. But the applicant is before you tonight because of the condition that was placed on the original variance for the multifamily of 90 units, and they are requesting these 5 units that they have in their application.
Thank you. Attorney Hoppett.
So the 5 units are going to go into where the casino is now?
That is my
plan?
That is my understanding. I think that I would have the applicant confirm that.
Oh, yep, okay. And they're one under the limit right now?
Again,
89?
my understanding that
Okay.
they have developed 89 was my
All right.
understanding out of the 90 that were proposed.
Perfect, thank you.
Michael?
About the existing use of the building right now, the casino, is that a permitted use, or was there a variance given to that to make it into casino?
That was a permitted use I think under our code, it was this is actually I think was one of the first ones that they put in. I think the zoning administrator at the time interpreted that as indoor recreational use. So yes, a permitted use within the district. It covers a wide spectrum of uses.
Attorney Taylor?
Thank you. Mr. Rogers, was that original condition for that 2016 variance, was that 90 units for the property or 90 units in the building that was the Colony Mill building?
If I may, Mr. Chair, it was not real, within the description and the notice of decision, it was not very clear. I know during testimony, reading through the minutes, it was certainly being put forth by the applicant that it was going to be in the main building at that time, but there had been, even during the testimony, there was some conversation about, I think it might have been before they had the bank as a possible tenant, and possibly converting some of that building into units. So I don't know, again, there was no stipulation applied to the variance that was granted other than the number of units, not necessarily on the location on the property.
One other question. The application references this table 8.1. I was just kind of curious why it didn't reference now I'm learning my way around the code, or reference the permitted uses in the Commerce District, which is 5.1.5. I didn't cross-reference them all because when I see a chart like 8.1, I just sort of see stars.
And that could be, again, could be that when the applicant initially saw the table 8.1, not realizing that there's some smaller tables
Okay.
within the districts
But they're
themselves.
essentially the same.
They are absolutely the
Okay.
same. Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, John. Any other questions? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Amy Sanders with Fuss and O'Neill. To my left, oh, is this not on?
Yep,
Oh,
yep.
now it's off. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. So to my left is Ben Kelly with representing Brady Sullivan Properties LLC as the owner. So thank you, John, for giving a really great background on the property. The intent here is to convert the existing casino building to 5 residential units. 4 of the units would be 2-bedroom, 1 unit would be 1-bedroom, and it would be conducted entirely within the existing building without any major external changes to the building. So it would kind of keep the same aesthetics, same feel that is currently existing on the property. We feel that this is a justified use because residential units are needed in the city of Keene. So this would help to fill that need. So I can just go through the 5 questions. Number 1 being granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. We feel that housing is a fundamental challenge and it's in high demand in Keene. By permitting the existing building to be converted to residential units, it helps to achieve one of the master plan goals, and that is to provide additional housing within a conveniently located area. This property is certainly considered convenient. There's commercial uses around it, there's existing residences, there's trails. It's near downtown, so it's walkable. So I think it certainly meets a lot of those criteria as being conveniently located. Additionally, the existing Colony Mill Marketplace building that exists on the property includes 89 apartment buildings, so the residential use is compatible with the surrounding uses that exist on the site today. Item 2, if the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because converting the existing building into residential units would create additional housing opportunities in a convenient location. That's adjacent to a recreational trail that I mentioned. It's in walking distance to various businesses and the downtown. Those all meet the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because the variance will allow for additional residential units that are greatly needed in the city. Residential housing units will be developed consistent with the city's master plan as they'll be developed within an existing structure and are convenient in its location. Item number 4, if the variance were granted, the values of surrounding properties would not be diminished because converting the existing building would really have no impact on the surrounding property values. It will be consistent with its existing appearance. I don't think anybody would really notice much of a difference except that there might be less parking on the weekend as the residential uses would use a lot less parking than perhaps the casino currently uses today. So overall, the character would feel the same and it wouldn't have an impact to surrounding properties. Number 5, unnecessary hardship. We feel that this is a unique building within the property and it sits on the lot kind of centralized and kind of almost hidden from the surrounding streets by the existing mill building. The surrounding area can support and benefit from an increase in residential housing. The surrounding area includes various businesses, recreation, cultural opportunities for residents to work, play, dine, and shop. Lastly, the proposed use is a reasonable one because, as previously mentioned, there's a shortage of housing in Keene, and this proposed use would provide additional housing units surrounded by existing various amenities that make it a desirable location to live. That's all. So I'll open it up to questions that you have.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions? Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First of all, are these going to be, what kind of apartments? Market rate apartments, or?
Yes, they would be market rate.
So they won't qualify as what is being thrown around as the need being affordable housing?
They are not affordable housing.
Okay.
Well, from a tax
Yeah.
credit standpoint, yes.
Yeah, from the term of art.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing is, thank you for putting that up on the screen, oh gods of television.
Oh.
I tried to figure out what apartments were where, and I was not able to from what was in the packet. So could you walk us through, like, which apartments are which on what floor?
Yeah, I think it's because there's a townhouse style or maybe two townhouse style units, which is why it's a little difficult to read.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first one and the third one are the townhouse style units, when you're looking at it from left to right, I believe. Is that correct, Amy?
Yeah, it looks like this
Yeah.
has the upstairs,
Yeah.
and then the middle one has an upstairs.
And so 3 of the 4 two-bedrooms are actually 2-bed, 2-bath units. So from a use standpoint, it's I think just a little over 6,000 square foot building. If you look at it as 5 units with no common area, it's really efficient and, nice sized units. Well over 1,000 square feet for the first one. And again, the third one,
I don't know if there's any way to point out what's what, because that doesn't really clarify for me.
so for the 1-bedroom, 1-bath, which I'm calling the third unit, that is a townhouse style. So that second floor, there's 2 pages, I guess, too. That's why that screen's a little, yeah. So the top view is the second floor. So it kind of overlays, if you will.
Okay,
And then that first unit is also that townhouse style with second floor space above with the master suite upstairs.
when I look at this, I come up with 4 units, so that's why I'm trying to figure out, if there were lines around them, it might help, and I'm just not an architect.
Michael?
If I can.
Sure,
Thank you,
please.
Chair. I thought I spoke loud enough. If you look, if you look at the top of that page on number 2 plan, that is the second, that's your 5th unit. See how it goes up? There's no, that's just a 1-bedroom unit on the second floor. So you see how the first one on the left-hand side has the top and bottom. So it has the living room, kitchen, and bathroom on the first, all the way on the left, and then it follows it upstairs and has 2 bedrooms. And then right next to that on the second floor is a separate unit coming up from that main entrance. And that one is a 1-bedroom on its own. And then on the first floor, you have the remaining the other 3 units. That makes sense.
Thank you. You seeing it, Jane? More? Good. Any other questions? All right, great. I guess that's it for now, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This time, I'll quickly call on the public to see if there's any input. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this, please step right up. Anyone who is opposed? Great. The public hearing is now closed. So, beginning with number 1, we'll begin our discussion. Who wishes to begin? That granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. Go ahead, Attorney Taylor.
Yeah, well, I don't think this particular application is contrary to the public interest, but I really do wish that every application we see doesn't try to justify itself on a housing need. But, no, there's clearly, I don't know if there's a housing need for market rate apartments as opposed to affordable housing, but I don't see anything that's been presented that says it's against the public interest.
Great. Anyone else?
I think that sums up my view of this, yes.
Great.
Even at market rate, though, it's in the public interest to increase the housing stock.
Yeah, I agree. Even if they are unaffordable apartments. Moving on to number 2, if the variance are granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed.
This is an interesting, I guess, development from the 90 previously approved, because now it fits into the character of the neighborhood.
Right.
So you're just adding more residential units to essentially a segment of land that's developed for residential purposes. So I don't find any problem with that prong either.
Attorney Taylor?
Could I ask Mr. Rogers a question?
Sure.
Well, both of you. Does this change the parking equation at all?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think that, I'm not sure if they addressed it in their application, but this site has abundant parking. It would be the 10 spaces required for this use, which actually might be possibly could be a decrease actually from the current use that's there. It might actually be a decrease in the actual required parking spaces.
Can I ask one more question? Will this go to the planning board?
Probably not. I'm just trying to remember the criteria. With the new LDC, there's specific criteria now that hits, whether it be done administrative. We also now have the minor review committee that this project would probably trigger a trip there. I don't believe that this rises under the new standards that it would rise to necessarily go to the planning board, but I'd have to review that. But I would doubt that it would have to go to the board, most likely to the minor project committee.
Okay, and I raise that question just because it's, for that particular building, it's a significant change in use.
That is correct. And then again, some of the different triggers, again, if they were to start, doing work outside, but what I heard from the applicant was that there was minimal outside work occurring. But again, if that were to change, that could very well end up at the planning board at that point in time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more on number 2?
Not for me.
Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Anyone? Attorney Hobbick?
This is one of those cases, I think, where you could have a gain to the individual, the owner, and a gain to the public at large by granting it. Because of the housing, again, the housing need being fulfilled, at least to a degree. And the owner putting the property to a use where there's public demand for it.
I agree. Number 4, if the variance were granted, the values surrounding properties would not be diminished. I don't think it's going to change the character of the property or the neighborhood substantially in terms of aesthetics, given that they're not doing anything to the outside of the building. I really don't see any possible adverse impact to surrounding property values by creating 5 new dwelling units where there already are 89. So I don't think it's going to raise the property value around it, but I don't think it's going to diminutize it either. Number 5, unnecessary hardship. 5A, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish from other properties in the area, denial of variance would result in unnecessary hardship. Because no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, and that the proposed use is a reasonable one. Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it being a reasonable use. The concern I have is the special condition of the property and the zone it's in. And whether, I'm still weighing in my own mind, whether that's adequate to create a hardship, because it is basically a commercial property. It had a commercial use. Now we're changing this specific building to a residential use, and I'm not quite sure what the hardship is.
I do see a certain element of uniqueness to the property, just given that it's such a large property. It does need to be adaptive to today's needs. It's not going to be a mill anymore. It's clearly not going to be a shopping mall like it was when I was a kid. And now it is primarily residential, with the exception of the brew pub, the bank, the 3-unit commercial building that was just constructed, and this casino. I just think that the size and scale of this property, it does make it unique, which could be viewed as sort of a hardship.
I'll take a crack at it. I've lived here for 20 years, 18 years now, and I think I've seen 4 or 5 different uses of this building, and they last a few years. And I've always presumed that one of the difficulties with the commercial use of the building is it's the hidden nature that the applicant was referring to before, and I think that, that's not a liability at all when it comes to residential use of this property. So,
Yeah, it is in a unique location to be a commercial use, given that you don't really have visibility from any of the streets, especially now that the rest of the property is not being used as commercially. Attorney Taylor?
But again, back to my question, the commercial practicality is different from what the uniqueness of the property is. And I'm trying to find the special condition of the property that makes it unique. I mean, I moved here in the 80s, and until the casino, it always had some sort of restaurant use. So as I said, I'm still questioning what the demonstrated hardship is that's resulted from this unique piece of property.
Any merit in reopening the public hearing and asking for more input?
Probably not. I guess I'm struggling out loud.
Its size and configuration make it difficult, and location make it difficult for commercial use, and I think the owners are doing the next best thing, filling a need for housing and developing it for housing. That is unique to that site. And the other thing about it is, it's so large, it can accommodate these numbers,
Right.
so.
Attorney Taylor?
So if I could ask a question, Mr. Hoppick, they've just constructed a 3-unit commercial building on the site. So doesn't that go kind of counter that this is not an appropriate commercial site?
The commercial building that they did there, that's going to be a storage facility, right? I'm trying to remember what it was
No,
for.
it's
Didn't
gonna-
we?
It's a 3-unit building, but it does have excellent visibility in contrast to the
It's going to be a
casino.
drive-through Domino's is one of them.
Was that where the Domino's that burned down is
Yeah.
going? Okay.
I don't know what the other two are.
I guess I don't know. But that would be something
Sorry, sir, but the
consistent-
public hearing is closed.
That would be
Thank you.
something that would be consistent with servicing residential, I guess, dwellings. People can go out and get a pizza or whatever.
Yeah, I do think that newly constructed office building is in a different situation than this building, because it's not buried in the center of the complex, so to speak. It does have much better commercial visibility and in and outness, accessibility.
That's across the street from where the bike path starts, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yep.
to visualize
Yep.
it.
So right on Island Street.
Right,
there.
right.
John?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just to point it out, Corinne's pulled up the map again. So kind of if you look at the highlighted yellow property, about right where you see the word "com," that's about the location of the new building that you're discussing with the commercial building. The building that is being presented to you tonight for the residential units is the green one at the very bottom with the 216, I think, for numbers on there. There we go. Thank you. So that's the, where you're seeing the, I think possibly one of the differences is you're pointing out as far as visibility.
Anything else? I will say any motion, I think we should confine these 5 units to that building if we are going to grant this variance, because of course there is a possibility that we're approving 5 units that could go in the main building for all we know, and then this building could eventually be used for something else without placing specific parameters on the 5 units.
So does this building have a specific address, or is it 222 or is it 210?
It's my understanding that the entire property is a single address. Is that correct, John? No?
It has multiple, I think as the building indicates, I believe that building would be the 216 West Street. 210 starting where the bank is, this building being 216, and then the main building being the 222.
So the casino building is 216. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. So we could approve the units for building 216.
Okay, yeah, that's,
We have a motion? Terry Hobbit?
I'll move to approve 2208 for to permit a multifamily dwelling, I guess, complex with 5 residential units permitted as a permitted use in the commerce zone, contrary to Chapter 100, Table 8-1. And those 5 units would be restricted to building 216.
Have a second? It's a tie. All right, I'll give it to Michael. Give it to the veteran. So we have a motion from Attorney Hoppick, a second from Michael. Beginning with criteria number 1, granting the variance to not be contrary to public interest. All in favor? Unanimous. On to number 2, that if the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. All in favor? 4, all opposed, 1. It's 4 to 1. Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. All in favor? It's unanimous. Number 4, the variance were granted, the values of surrounding properties would not be diminutized. All in favor? It's unanimous. And number 5, unnecessary hardship. 5A, specifically that owning special and distant property that distinguished from other properties in the area, the denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, and that the proposed use is a reasonable one. All in favor? All opposed? It's 4 to 1. Final tally on ZBA
2208.
Thanks, Joe. ZBA 2208, all in favor? All opposed? It's 4-1. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. All right. In the spirit of keeping things moving, I will move right along to ZBA 2209. Thanks, everyone, for your patience this evening. Petitioners Scoff and Kerry, forgive my pronunciation, Bashinsky?
Yep.
All right, of 136 Hastings Ave, Keene. They're requesting a variance for property located at 136 Hastings Ave, tax map 523-039-000-000. That is in the low-density district. The petitioner requests variance to permit both the rear and side setbacks, 6 feet where 20 feet is required for the rear and 10 feet is required for side setbacks in order to install an 18-foot above-ground swimming pool per Chapter 100, Article 3.3.2 of zoning regulations. We'll begin with some input from city staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As indicated, this property is in the low density. One correction I'd like to point out to the board is that while the notice of hearing states that there is a, they're asking for, sorry, I'm trying to find it here in the reading, the 6-foot setback, and they state that the 20-foot is required in the rear. Actually, there is an exception within the code that would allow for swimming pools to be within 10 feet of the rear setback. So just so the board's aware, it's actually really, they're looking to have 6 feet where 10 is required, both on the side and the rear, since they are proposing for a swimming pool. So it's a smaller, a little bit of a smaller ask, I guess, would be what I'd want to just make sure the board's aware of that. So again, I will let the applicants speak to this.
Great. Any questions? Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, just one comment. When the applications are taken in, this one, and I noticed on the next one too, on the property information where it says zoning district, it's just typed in zoning districts as opposed to what the district really is. So,
I'm sorry, Attorney Terry, where are you referring to? Because I see lower below after it says the tax map number,
where
it says that it's in the low density.
Section 2.
Oh, I see on the application itself. Okay,
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So just, when those come in, if you could double check. And
appreciate that.
my other question, and again, maybe I missed the right section of the code, but on impervious surfaces, do above-ground pools, the area that they sit on, does that add to impervious surface or not?
It certainly can if a swimming pool is installed properly, they're highly unlikely they're going to bring a pool like this in and just set it on top of the loam or the grass. Most likely that there are going to be, that material is removed and some sure pack of some sort of compactable material placed, because I can imagine having your pool put on a unstable ground is probably not the best idea for longevity of that pool.
Yeah, right, but, and the reason I'm asking, because it says percentage of lot covered by structures, it goes into pools, decks, existing and proposed, and then it says percentage of impervious coverage, structures plus driveways, and it says proposed not applicable, which doesn't really match up with the percentage of the lot covered by structure. So I found that confusing and hoping you could clarify it.
I would assume that they're speaking to the fact that the change to the percentage that they're doing is obviously the number that's allowed for the overall of the structures plus driveways and parking areas is going to be a higher number. So they were just looking at it, since they're the one above it speaks to pools. I'm assuming that's why they you do see the increase in the square footage there. Certainly something we should have picked up on.
Right,
and probably
because it
asked that
doesn't
question.
include driveways, and I don't know what the percentage is or would be, or if it meets, or if it's correct, or if it's excess, or whatever. So I was hoping you could provide some guidance on that.
I would, again, the fact that they're at the 17%, that's including, that's including the house and this new pool. I can do some quick calculations, but just looking at the what's in front of you right there, the additional percentage of what that driveway and that turnaround lane is probably going to be minimal.
Okay.
But you certainly bring up a valid point that we should be looking at some of these issues, because I could see it in some circumstances that being a
Right.
problem. I don't foresee that being a problem with this one, just what I'm
Okay.
seeing here at the moment. But
Yeah, because I'm not familiar enough myself with the percentages and where it is in the new code to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
I would think a swimming pool would be more of a catch basin than impervious, but that's just me. All right, well, thank you for that. Any other questions for John? Great, thanks, John. At this point, guys, thanks for your patience. Sorry I mispronounced your name, but it is a typo, and I just got a text from Corinne telling about it, so Scott, welcome.
You were the one we talked to on the phone to get this.
Thanks for waiting all night, guys, so go ahead, welcome.
Before we start, the only reason why we're even here is, I guess, code for Keene is any pool above 24 inches would need a building permit. So that more or less means any pool that you buy from Walmart, Target, et cetera. So that's the only reason why we didn't even know we would have to do this until we had called to do this. So most of my neighbors think that I'm crazy to even ask for a variance. They said just,
Why didn't you just install it?
yes, all of them said, why didn't you just put it in? But,
Ask forgiveness instead of permission?
yes, but we don't want to do that because our plan is this house has been in my wife's family for almost 30 years. We have children and we plan on staying there, but for, cost of housing is going up. I mean, we might get an offer we can't refuse, and if we want to sell it, so, but I'll let my wife do most of the talking, so.
I'm sorry, I have never done one of these before. Do I just sort of read what we wrote here, or?
You're certainly free to do whatever you wish, but
Okay.
the way the board deliberates on these criteria pretty specifically, it's probably in your best interest to just read through the criteria and
Okay.
make your point for each one.
Okay. Okay. So we are requesting a variance to 6 feet front and rear to allow in an 18-foot above-ground swimming pool to be installed. Granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest, because it would not alter the property value of the abutters, sorry. If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because the yard surrounding the proposed pool location is fully sectioned off by 6-foot privacy fencing. It will have no visual or other impact that the setbacks are designed to preserve. I didn't know it was 10 feet in the rear for a swimming pool, so that maybe helps us. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. It will cause no harm to the general public or abutters. The pool installation and use will comply with all requirements imposed by proper building permit and city ordinances. We're having a professional installer put the pool in.
And on the ground.
Yeah, we'll level the ground, prepare it, everything will be done to code. If the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. This lot is in a desirable residential area. It attracts mainly families. It's not apartments. It's, people with kids. This property has had multiple recent exterior improvements. We've repainted, we've put up the vinyl fencing, a new metal shingle roof. We've done landscaping, tree removal. We're working on the inside too, so we're good. Our property is good around us. I don't think it would diminish their property values. Unnecessary hardship. I realize not being able to have a pool is not considered a hardship. So this one's a little bit difficult, but the lot is unique. So if you can see on the plans, the lot is kind of a rhombus with the house in the center slightly offset. And we don't really have a backyard to speak of. So there's just 33 feet from the exterior wall of the house to the rear property line. We were told that we cannot put a pool on the right side of our property because the city water and sewer lines are there. So the only place that it could feasibly be installed is in the rear left corner of the lot. As you can see in some of the photos, you can actually see how the house is located here and it slopes down, and the only place that a pool could be is in that right rear. It's the most level, left rear, sorry. Let's see, given the current setback, we would need to pay considerably more to level the space the closer you get to our house. In addition, the visual and practical appeal would increase if the pool could be installed with the proposed variances. Installed closer to the house and therefore higher on the slope, the pool would actually be more visible to the abutters. So if that was a concern at all, if they don't want to see our above-ground pool, the further back into the yard, they wouldn't necessarily see it as well. The proposed use is a reasonable one because it will allow the owners to continue to improve the property, thereby increasing the value of the property. That's pretty much it. Does anyone have questions?
Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, just one quick question on the picture that we have up in front of us at the moment. It looks like that's a play structure.
Yes.
So that's roughly where you want the
Yes,
pool to
exactly.
go, where
That's
that is?
roughly
We
where
would
the-
be moving the swing set to the right-hand side of the house.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's basically
Yeah,
where the pool
okay.
would go.
And I do have one more question for Mr. Rogers.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask this earlier, but I generally look this up on the city's GIS stuff, and then I put the layers on, and I printed it out and brought it in with me. Because the coding on the GIS isn't the greatest, sorry. But there was all this blue, so I didn't know if there was wetlands or if this was in any kind of flood area. And that was my only concern. You're welcome to have my pretty picture.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, if you can give me a moment to
Sure, sure.
pull
I
that
can-
up on the
we can
mapping
go
and
on
take a
from
look
there.
at that.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the meantime, yeah.
I just have a quick question for the applicant. Does your yard slope into that corner that we're looking at right there? Is that where the
That's
direction of the
the
slope goes?
flattest spot
That's-
of our whole yard.
Yeah, that's the most level area, so then it kind of slopes up towards, so the house is raised.
So off picture, your slope is what's concerning you?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's the lowest point of the property?
Yes.
And the flattest?
And the
Yes.
flattest.
And we have a neighbor behind us who has offered many times for us to use his pool, but we would prefer to have our own, so that's all.
Yep.
So, unless it goes in the front yard, and I don't know what
I don't think
that,
anyone,
I don't think anybody wants to see that, so,
When you say 18 feet, is that the diameter of it?
yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicants while John works on that? Go ahead, Michael.
Just a quick one. When you mentioned the right side of the yard has sewer and water, and that you were told, so when you were talking about this with the city, they said, yeah, don't put a pool there. That's how you got the word?
yeah.
Yeah, and we've had some improvements to the house that are done, like plumbing and stuff, and we had a lot of problems with roots and stuff from trees going into the sewage and lines, so we just took all the trees down and put up a nice fence in its place, so we kind of just assumed that you guys, the city didn't want anything built on top of, the sewage
That's what you were
lines.
told when you called to ask
Yeah.
about the building permit, is that,
Because I had called and I talked to two different people at the town office. One was supposed to call me back, and then actually, I think she was the one that actually, Corinne was the one that actually went through the rules with us, so, which is the reason why we're here, so.
John?
So to try and answer Attorney Taylor's question, so I have pulled up GIS mapping. One of the things with our mapping system is you can put a bunch of different layers on there. So if I initially just pull up the wetlands map and floodplain map, there's nothing that pops up in this neighborhood, which I'd be shocked if it did. What it brought those, what appear to be, bodies of water almost on the lap, or a mapping from 2015, plan matrix map from 2015. I have no idea what those are trying to represent, because if I go to the 2020 version of that map, it's not there. So I think that's just a glitch within the GIS mapping system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe the blue represents future swimming pools. Anything else for the applicants? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So I'll call on the public at this point for any input. Guessing that you folks are here for the next application.
Yes, but I'd love to see a pool in there.
Great.
And I'd love to see that driveway get done.
Well, thank you, guys. So at this point, I will close the public hearing, seeing no public attendees. So, beginning with criteria number 1, that granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. Who wishes to weigh in? Go ahead, Joe.
I didn't hear anything that would suggest to me that this application would present a situation that would be contrary to the public interest. I mean, they have a fence around the yard, they've taken the safety precautions already, or privacy, however you want to define it. I don't see anything that's contrary to the public interest.
Attorney Taylor?
And if the abutters were going to object, I'm sure we would have heard from them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably one of the stronger gauges of what the public interest is.
I agree. On to number 2, if the variance is granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed.
I see nothing in this application that presents a threat or danger to the public health, safety, or welfare, or would alter the essential character of the neighborhood. In fact, we heard information about there being a pool next door, so I guess it would just be consistent with it.
I agree. I also think the fence helps in any
Yep.
privacy issues that may come to light here. So, number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Go ahead, Richard.
I think because of the siting of the house, there aren't a lot of choices. It's centered. So if you're trying to put it in any corner, that starts to limit it right there. So I don't see any issue with that either.
Yep. And I think the benefit to the property owner outweighs any adverse impact to any of the abutters. As Attorney Taylor pointed out, if they had a problem with it, they'd probably be here.
Yeah.
And we know that some people know how to do that.
Number 4, that is will not diminutize surrounding property values.
There's nothing in the record that would show any value diminution anywhere
Yep,
as a
I
result
agree.
of this project, so.
And if I'm listening to the applicants, it sounds like the surrounding property owners are kind of enthused to see this happen. So,
They're tired of everybody in the neighborhood going to their pool. They
Yeah.
want to share the wealth a little bit.
So, number 5, unnecessary hardship, special conditions of property that distinguish from other properties in the area, Denial of variance would result in unnecessary hardship because no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of the provision to the property because the proposed use is a reasonable one. Anyone? Attorney Hubbock?
The special conditions on this property, I think, are the sloping land away from where they want to put the pool, you know, sort of leaving only that area within this, partially within that setback available to them, and the location of the water and sewer lines. And if you ever had a problem with trees growing into sewer lines, you want to avoid that. And I can't imagine anybody would want to put a pool on top of that. So I find those conditions to be special to their lot. And, you know, maybe, you know, other lots probably have sewer lines in them, but they're not interfering with the use of the property. So that's what makes it a little bit more unique here.
Yep.
And I think when you look at that special condition, applying the restriction, the setback restriction to this lot makes it unfair and creates the hardship.
I agree. I don't think there's any better place on the property for the pool. I think it's reasonable to want to have a pool on your property, and this is sort of their best case attempt at it, given all the restrictions that their property creates. Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you and Mr. Hoppick have said. I just want to note that, you know, we're presented with these things, and sometimes it's a matter of gradation. For example, if they had wanted to put an addition on the house that would go within 4 feet or something of the property line, and it was a 2-story addition or something like that, I might have a little problem with the hardship. But when you look at the nature of the application, the configuration of the property, I think it makes sense.
Absolutely. Yep, well put. I agree. So, having fully discussed criteria 1 through 5, do we have a motion? Attorney Hoppick?
I move to approve 2209 without conditions.
We have a second. Attorney Taylor? We have a motion from Attorney Hoppick, second from Attorney Taylor. We'll get you, Richard. You got the next one. How's that? So, beginning with number 1, granting the variance to not be contrary to public interest. All in favor? Unanimous. Number 2, if the variance is granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. All in favor? Unanimous. Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. All in favor? Again, unanimous. Number 4, if the variance is granted, the value surrounding properties will not be diminutized. All in favor? Again, unanimous. And on to number 5, for unnecessary hardship. All in favor? Again, unanimous. And final tally on ZBA 2209. All in favor? Unanimous. Thanks, guys. Good luck. Appreciate your patience tonight.
Again, for the record, their
Yep.
driveway, we're down.
We have it on record. Thank you. All right, guys, 2210, last but not least, petitioner Steve Sweeney of 146 Armory Street, Keene, requests a variance for property located at 146 Armory Street. That's tax map 529-020-000-000. That is in the low-density district. The petitioner requests a variance to permit the installation of a proper driveway with 1 foot from the property line instead of a minimum of 3 feet per Chapter 100, Article 9.3.2 of the zoning regulations. This time I'll call on city staff for a little bit of background.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As indicated, this property is in the low-density district. This is out near, if you're familiar where Fuller School is, they're just down the street from the back of the Fuller School recreation fields, baseball fields, t-ball fields, whatever they are actually used for today. I don't remember. It's been too long since my kids went there. But this is a variance under our section of our code. We do require for 1 and 2 families to maintain a 3-foot buffer from driveways and parking areas. The bigger concern here a lot of time is with with drainage, a way to be, try and maintain any, water flowing off of the travel surface or parking surface. It's able to be maintained on your property. And I'll let the applicant certainly speak to the hardship here. But you can see, as I believe, the picture you see here, the driveway is being proposed on the side towards the top of the screen, where they just there's not the room to be able to put an actual travel lane and maintain that 3 feet.
Great. Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, I'm a little confused by the picture that we're looking at on the screen. So 146 is the subject property, and then that white dash or bar that's above it on, you just made it smaller, I think 150. That's on the neighboring property?
Correct. There's a house that's been built there now. It was, I'm assuming from this, when this GIS mapping was taken, it was a vacant lot at the time, but there currently is a house there. I think if in your packet, you'll see another that has this and actually shows that the house
Yeah,
that's there.
That's why I was kind of confused.
Yeah, and but what you're seeing, that gray piece is actually the driveway for that 150 property, not for the applicant's property.
Anything else?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Attorney Hall.
John, this may be a better question for Mr. Sweeney, but I'm going to start with you first. This picture here, that's the introductory page to the packet. There's a rock wall on the right side of, there's a rock wall between a tree and what looks like a driveway. It's going into that opening in the foundation wall. Is that the driveway? Is that the garage? Or is that where it's going to go on this property? I'm just trying to figure out the location.
It's my understanding that probably previously that was probably, if you had a very small vehicle, that might have actually been a drive-under garage space for this property. That I'm not certain what the current use is, but the actual driveway will be, and then just to address what Attorney Taylor was talking about in that picture, that house you see setting back a little bit, that's the brand-new house that was built. But I think it's going to be, the driveway is going to be going to the right of the blue house of the applicant's property.
Okay, so we'll let him speak to that then.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right, great. Welcome.
People, it's my first time.
Yep.
So, little unprepared. I wasn't aware I had to read all my stuff to you.
Yeah, and you don't have to. It just may benefit you. If you could just quickly state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Sweeney, 146 Armory Street.
Great, thank you.
Now, I do have already permitted a driveway there. So there's already a permit for a driveway. What I want to do is just make the driveway more usable. Right now, you got to kind of pick and choose whether you're in mud season or not, whether you're going to park there. Right as it is right now, in front of my property is actual parking on the street. And then where that rock wall is, there's a garage underneath the house where that was originally a parking spot, which we don't use as a parking area, so we're not looking to have that added into the property as a driveway additional to the permitted driveway that's already there. That goes the whole length of the property.
So can we see that in the photograph or not? I'm
one-
gathering that it's
And one of the GIS.
on the other side of that retaining wall, is that correct?
It's on the opposite side of the retaining wall, on the north side of the retaining wall.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But that was in one of the GIS pictures there. But what I'm looking to do is, like I said, make a more usable driveway with either SurePack or recycled asphalt so that I can use it more readily. The reason why I'm going for a 1-foot variance as opposed to the 3 is so that my driveway's not directly on the edge of my house, so that as you know, driving over in the wintertime, you can drive frost. And I want to try and keep my driveway a little bit further off to the side of the house to try and minimize the wear on the foundation of the house.
Great. One quick question for
Yep.
how much room are we talking away from the house?
So right now, it's set at like a foot, and I want to go a foot further from the edge of the house and then have the 1 foot, so it'll be like,
So literally, if you didn't get the couple of feet on the property line side, you'd be up against your foundation with your
pretty much,
driveway?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. So I don't know if,
Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture in our packet, which was a little bit different from what was on the screen. So I guess my question is, can we go back to what the GIS picture was? So you want this driveway the full length of your property?
yeah, yes. And which was already in the property pictures in the GIS. It was,
Yeah, well, what we got didn't come through. Not the way that is. So I'm trying to understand, so the driveway permit you get is what, for access off the road?
yes.
Okay, and the purpose of it going the whole length of your property?
In the future, if somebody wanted to put a actual garage
Oh, I see,
out in the back,
okay.
or carport, or whatever,
For which they'd probably have to come back for variance.
probably, yeah.
What do you, can I continue?
Yeah, sure.
Where do you park now?
On the street.
And what do you do in winter when there are parking prohibitions?
I haven't ran into an issue with that yet. If it's gonna be a bad storm, I park on the side of the house where the driveway actually is.
You're not actually on the street when you park, correct?
No,
There's
there's a setback.
ample space set
Yes.
back off the street, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, that's what I didn't
Yeah,
understand.
I'm sorry, yes. So I have a wooden barrier wall in front of the house with probably 7 feet
Yeah, that's what
between
it
that
looks
and the
like.
road
Yeah.
for parking. And if you go down Armory Street anytime during school hours,
Yeah.
the road's just lined with vehicles, so.
Right.
So,
I'm gonna get rid of the parking in the front is gonna go away, that's gonna be tapered.
so in a
Back
way,
to
it
the
could be said that you're making it more conforming because that parking in the front line of the house would not,
Nobody does that on the
would not
street.
be allowed, yeah, under our current zoning
Yeah.
regulations. So you are going to get rid of that?
Yeah, that'll all be cut back down to the road, make it more of a front yard.
Great. Any other questions? Michael?
Just so that I'm visualizing, we have this picture up. It sounds like you'd be getting rid of that bush right there.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Anything else? All right, I guess you can proceed if you want to run through the criteria.
Okay, thank you. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because the other properties don't have to park on the street. The variance would allow more usable driveway by allowing vehicles to park closer to the property line and a little further from the house, allowing better access to both sides of the vehicle and allowing better maintenance of the driveway. If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because the driveways are laid out in the same fashion along the street. The driveways between 145 and 149 are approximately the same layout as mine. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because it would allow vehicles not to be parked on the side of the road, allowing more room for navigation and a clearer sight line down the road for other drivers, and allowing easier plowing of Armory Street during winter months. The drop-off for Fuller School is along Armory Street, directly in front of the house. During pickup or drop-off for the school, the road is down to one lane. Having our vehicles parked on the side of our home would allow for the street to be more passable during these hours. If the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished because I don't think it would have any negative effect on the surrounding properties because it wouldn't impede on any other property. It would allow for uniformly, on the streets. We'll be making the front yard of our property more appealing, which in turn will help the property's value. All properties on Armory Street have parking on the side of the homes. Unnecessary hardship. It would cause hardship due to not allowing us to put the proper driveway, which would allow us to park off the street. This makes our home less desirable than other homes in our area. The general public would benefit from our cars being parked in a proper driveway due to there being more room to drive on Armory Street, especially during Fuller School drop-off and pickup. I think that's what I got.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Just got a quick question for you, relative to your butter on the side of the proposed driveway. How close to the property line is their dwelling unit, their house?
How close to my property line is their driveway?
Their house?
Their house, they have their driveway in between my property line and their house. So it's
Okay.
probably 20 feet,
Okay.
25 feet.
So can you just speak to the space that's going to be between their driveway and yours? Is it like a lawn area? Is it?
It's grass, yeah.
Okay, great. Attorney Taylor?
Yeah, and you partially addressed this before, and I guess I didn't quite catch it, but some form of wall that's the other side of the bush that Mr. Welsh mentioned,
Yep,
is that on your property or your butter's property?
that's my property.
On your property.
Yeah.
So if you're only practical question, if you're only 1 foot from the property line and you have a car there, how do you get in the passenger side if you park head in?
So I have the room, I have 16, 17 feet between my property line and the house. So there's room to open up your doors fully on each side of the vehicle and on that side of the yard.
I guess I must be missing something, because if you say the driveway's only going to be a foot from the property line, and I'm assuming that wall is probably slightly on your property?
Now, so that rock wall that's right there, I have from the outside of that rock wall where that bush is, over to my pen is 15 feet, I believe, 15 or 16 feet. So
Maybe we're not talking about the same wall.
No,
Why don't you come on up to the screen
Yeah,
if you don't
certainly.
mind and just show Attorney Taylor exactly what you got?
Yeah,
So-
that one.
This here,
No, the one, the far side of the bush.
this one over here?
Yeah.
That's their driveway. That's their paved driveway.
Oh, from here it looks like a wall.
Yeah, no, that's their paved driveway.
Looks like their driveway's not 3 feet from the property line.
Yeah.
I believe it. No, it's not. No. I'm pretty certain it's up to
It is.
standards, yeah.
So the bush that you have there is, that's where the driveway's gonna go, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And you say there's 16 or 17 feet between your boundary and your house?
Yeah, from the edge of the house to the, I think it may be in the 15.
So 15 or so.
area, yeah.
So if-
How wide are you proposing this driveway to be, 10 feet?
About 9.5 feet.
Okay.
So why don't you have 3 feet to work with?
I would have, but it just pushes it up against the edge of the building, up against the side of this house.
If you have a 10-foot wide driveway and you've got, would you say 15 feet
Yeah, it's about.
to the property line? You could still, okay, maybe my addition is off, I don't know.
If you get out of the vehicle, you're essentially getting out onto the lawn.
You want
On
to
the
keep
other
snow
side.
buildup in your foundation. right?
Yes, and I want to be able to, also, there's a fence that runs on their property line, on our property line. So I want to try and stay away from, you can't see the fence from here, but it starts probably 8 feet back from the front of my property and runs the entire length.
Is it your neighbor's fence?
Yes.
Okay.
So you need to be able to get out of your passenger door.
Yes,
that's
yes. If
kind of
there
what I
wasn't
was
a
looking
fence
at.
there, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But there's a fence on the property line.
And I guess that was the foundation of my original question is,
Yeah.
if you're driving head in, how do you get out of the passenger side of the car and stay on your property?
Well, that's why I want to make the at 1 foot so that there's ample space to get out of the vehicle.
Passengers who are a lot skinnier than I am.
Well, I just wonder though, if you're a foot from the fence with your driveway, just hear me out on this, maybe I'm overthinking it, but a car door is much bigger than a foot, so how are you even gonna, it's gonna hit the fence, isn't it?
If you open up the doors on my truck, you can open up both doors in the drive area.
His truck is higher than the fence.
A little bit,
It's a,
a little bit.
I'm guessing you want the swing of the door to be over the pavement of the driveway.
Yes.
As opposed to over
Yes.
the grass.
Yeah.
correct.
Yes.
But then, I know that at this point we're splitting hairs, but then your driveway's wider than 10 feet, I think. If you've got door swing on both sides of your vehicle. John?
Just to point out, Mr. Chair, I mean, parking spaces, obviously there's multiple pieces of this, you've got your right-of-way access point, or your curb cut, whatever you want to call it. You have a driveway then you have
Parking.
Parking space. Traditional parking spaces per our code would require, a 9 by
9 foot.
18 area that you could fit in. Obviously, a little bit wider is beneficial, but mostly what you see for parking space itself is about 9 feet wide
Okay.
traditionally.
Great.
So that's wide enough for a driveway, right? 9 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is all coming together. If you got 10-foot driveway with a foot on the side of it, you're good, because a car can fit in a 9-foot spot and open its doors, so math problem solved. And you'll have about 3 feet off your foundation, 3 or 4 feet, and 1 foot on the opposite side,
Yes.
with a 10-foot wide driveway.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping us see it. Any other questions? This is why we don't let our meetings go past 10 o'clock.
It's getting tired now.
Anything else? No. Thank you. We're gonna, I'm assuming you're with him, so there's no public input?
I was public input, actually.
Okay, go ahead. Come on up.
In support.
Great.
Sitting here all this time and not saying anything.
I know, yeah. I wasn't going to unless needed, but after all this time, I feel like I should. So, James Thompson, 149 Armory Street, just here on behalf of the neighborhood to express our support. I don't think there's any downside to this for anyone on the street. I'm sure I can't express the views of people who aren't here, but perhaps I can express how I came to my own point of view, which was reaching out to Michael Groton of 150 Armory Street. And in my conversation with him, he also expressed no concerns with the driveway whatsoever, so.
Great. Well, he's lucky to have you for a neighbor. You've been sitting here for
Well, I got a
3.5 hours,
a
right?
certified letter. I figured I had some civic duties.
That's right. Well, good for you. Thanks for coming. All right, public hearing's closed. Do we have a motion?
You wanted to go through, or you want to make the motion? Right?
Oh, yeah, we can go through it, yeah. I'm tired.
I hear you.
So, let's deliberate, beginning with number 1. And that is that granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest.
I don't see anything in this application that would be contrary to the public interest. If anything, he's making an effort to reduce the congestion on the street. So it improved the public interest.
I agree. I think a big part of this is getting rid of that parking in front of the house that doesn't even really meet our zoning requirements, and getting a driveway on a property that is constrained to have one. I think, specific to number 1, getting the cars off the street, especially in an area where there's a, school.
Right.
A lot of traffic. All makes sense. Number 2, if the variance or grant spirit of the ordinance will be observed. I think that the spirit of the ordinance here is, the intent of this ordinance is to create runoff from someone's driveway affecting an abutter or adversely impacting a abutter. That's why I asked the question about what was going to be on the opposite side of the driveway. Turns out that it is in fact lawn. There's also a fence there, which I think helps the cause. So I think, because of that grass buffer between the two driveways, the intent of the ordinance is still being observed. Anyone else? Number 3.
You're on a roll.
Granting the variance to do substantial justice. I think it's pretty reasonable for someone to have a driveway. As I stated, the property does have constraints. He's doing his best to meet his needs without adversely impacting his house. I wouldn't want a driveway 1 foot off my foundation either. Snow removal, frost, all those reasons. Anyone else? Number 4, granting the variance will not diminish surrounding property values.
There's no basis to believe that to be true. So-
Correct. I agree.
And we've heard from the neighbors, and they have attested that that's not a concern for them.
Yep. Great. Unnecessary hardship owing to special conditions of the property distinguished from other properties in the area. Denial of variance would result in unnecessary hardship because no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision of the property, and that the proposed use is a reasonable one.
This is a small lot. If I'm reading this right, it's 1/4 of an acre, right?
Yeah, just over.
Okay, so that'd be one special condition I would cite in terms of the available space on this lot for a driveway is not a lot.
Yep.
Not a lot of space for a driveway, so, and it's due to the size. And I think that's a special condition that would make applying the setback rule unfair to this property.
I agree. Anyone else? All right. So at this point, I'll ask the board for a motion. And Richard?
I yield to my colleague.
I move that we approve ZBA 22-10 146 Armory Street.
Great.
Second.
We have a motion from Richard, his first, I might add, and a second from Attorney
We
Hoppick.
pulled him out of his shell.
So with that said, beginning with criteria number 1. You'd think I'd have these memorized by now, but
It's late, it's okay.
it is. So number 1 is that granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. All in favor? Unanimous. Number 2, if the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. All in favor? Again, unanimous. Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. All in favor? Again, unanimous. Number 4, that the variance being granted will not diminutize surrounding property values. All in favor? Again, unanimous. And number 5, that an unnecessary hardship does exist. All in favor? Again, unanimous. And final tally on ZBA 22-10. All of those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Good luck.
At this point, any new business?
You might not make it out of the room.
So that's it, right? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys, for a long night.